underway between Isis and Goldie, the Cambridge Reserve crew, are up by about half a length as they pass the boathouses. And just as Cambridge will be doing, so Goldie, the reserve crew, are on the Middlesex station. And from our aerial shot, you get a better idea. It's not, well, I think it is about half a length. Goldie over on the Middlesex station have made a good start here, and perhaps now going up by some 3/4 of a length over Isis. Goldie, of course, won this reserve race last year. A tremendous race the reserve crews had last year in those terrible conditions. They were rowing through rough water all the way. They took over 20 minutes to row, but in the end they only finished a length apart, Goldie winning. Tremendous battle they had. So the reserve race is underway, and Goldie are a length up. So the women's boat race at Henley, and now on the tideway at Putney, the 134th University boat race on a fine day, calm conditions and very big crowds indeed. I don't think I've seen as many people. It is Easter Saturday after all, but nonetheless there are big crowds on both sides of the river, both here beneath us on where the boathouses are on the Surrey bank, and over on the Middlesex bank over at the Fulham Wall. There are big crowds yet again. So, everything's set for a great day. Now, the reserve race has reached Chiswick 8, Goldie versus Isis, and the last we saw of them, Goldie had a big lead, and it looks as though they still have. This, of course, now is the peak of the Surrey Bend, and Goldie are hugging the inshore there, and are well ahead of Isis. Good omen, Chris, for the big race, or not?
Yes, I think so. And this year, Goldie have shown startling form on occasions, but the one time they met Isis, which was in a timed race a fortnight ago, Isis actually beat them, though Goldie were rowing reserve on that occasion. But it doesn't look as if Goldie are going to give any chances away today. They're sitting comfortably 2 to 3 lengths up. They've taken Isis's water, rowing around the inside of the Surrey Bend. They've got a good 3 to 4 lengths there. I think the main race could be a little bit different, but the information we've got in the last week or so shows that Cambridge have been improving quite dramatically, and certainly the start of the race could be very interesting.
Well, these must be as placid conditions, I suppose, as you would ever get this time of the year, Chris.
Oh, I think this is very much as good as you can expect. It's a slow race because there isn't actually very much, by the way, in way of tide this year. There's quite a lot of land water coming out, but it's absolutely perfect rowing conditions. You'll never see better on the boat race course.
And so some people enjoy themselves on houseboats, and parties going on all up the river. Dramatic sky. Now, back from our helicopter shot, we look down on the reserve race with Goldie, rather, the reserve Cambridge crew now leading by some 3 to 4 lengths. And now you can see, this is what we should be seeing later in the race, you can see how the Middlesex Bend comes into operation again over the final stages of this course. That's Barnes Railway Bridge up in the distance. So it's Middlesex Bend first, then the huge Surrey Bend, which turns through 180 degrees, and then finally the Middlesex Bend takes over.
Certainly Goldie seem to be taking their time now. They've got this race well in hand, and short of an act of God, I think they're going to come through here. Rowing nicely here. All these boys have learnt their rowing at Cambridge, which is very gratifying for Cambridge. There's the only lady in the race. It's Lisa Ross-Magenty, looking way back over her shoulder to see how far in front Goldie have got. Sitting out comfortably.
He was in a winning Cambridge crew 4 years in a row in the early 70s, but those days seem to have gone.
They would appear to have done just recently, but we're hoping to get there again. This race today actually could be a very interesting one, because once again Oxford have certainly come to the final fortnight as favourites, but the gaps have been closing in the last 2 weeks.
So the reserve race now coming towards its end, and Goldie taking it very comfortably indeed, with the other crew in sight, as they have been for them for a long time now, and they can place themselves nice and steadily towards the finishing post.
This is very much every boat race oarsman's dream, that they can get nicely out in front and sit back and really enjoy their rowing. They're not going to make any mistakes now.
So the Goldie stroke, Michael Keeley from Australia.
Naval officer Mike Keeley. He's the only man with any rowing experience to speak of. Certainly leading his crew and hopefully steering them in the right directions as well.
Now we shall look at the finish of the Goldie ISIS race and then get you back as quickly as we can to Putney, which from the helicopter isn't too difficult. Anyway, let's just concentrate on the finish of this race, the reserve race, with Goldie comfortably leading the ISIS crew. In other words, Cambridge leading Oxford to the finish in the other race.
It's not often you see such perfect water. You can see the lead boat, the Goldie boat, cutting its way through the water,
Like
its wake trailing out behind. And we can count the days when we get like this on the tideway, probably on the fingers of a couple of hands in a year.
And it's a rather bigger lead now that Goldie have got ISIS disconsolate and hopelessly outrowed in this one.
Well behind and also well out of the tide. They've slipped away from the middle of the river. The tide's usually found. Looks a good 6 or 7 lengths now.
That's a good point to make, because I think the layman, like myself, would tend to think that if you cut the corner, you're going to go the shortest way, but sometimes the shortest way is out in the middle, where the fast stream.
Oh, that's nearly always true, unless there's so much land water that the tide's not flowing at all. The tide actually tends to flow to the middle and to the outside of every bend, which is why you'll see the crews, particularly you see it from the helicopter, hugging the outside of the centre line. But the point where the stream is actually quite a narrow one, and the coxes will be fighting to get the very best of it. There's the tide pushing against those buoys. Not a particularly strong one today, but nevertheless helping those crews over the course.
Be interesting to see what the time of this race is, just to get an estimate of how slow the conditions are. And of course they haven't really rowed themselves out here.
No, I don't know. I would expect them to be pushing on 19 minutes today, maybe a bit faster. They've certainly had a light breeze behind them, which is more than one often gets over this course.
It took well over 20 minutes to row the reserve race last year in those awfully rough conditions. So here are Goldie, the reserve Cambridge crew, coming home to victory for the second year running in the reserve race. And there it is, the flag goes down, and Goldie have won, and they've won very handsomely indeed.
I'm going to bring some board games. Is that all right? I'm going to take some board games.
So that's the news of the reserve race. We look down on Chiswick. And here's the Goldie crew, and the Lady Cox is having a ceremonial baptism in celebration.
I think there was a self-submerging, wasn't it? She didn't volunteer. I think she was worried about her watch around her neck.